It's hard to believe that it's been 6 years since Animal Crossing New Horizons came out. While the entire world was in a different place on March 20th, 2020, New Horizons release date still feels relatively recent. To me, it feels like just yesterday I was hunting for bugs, upgrading my island, and meeting new villagers for the first time. But in reality, so much has changed. The world has returned largely to the way it was before the impossibly popular entry in the series dropped. But in that time, Nintendo has released the Switch 2, and the game itself, despite retaining its cozy vibe, has changed immensely since launch. Over these last 6 years, Nintendo has made numerous changes to Animal Crossing, adding in fan-favorite features from previous entries, releasing DLC, and adding mechanics that are entirely new to the series. However, despite the numerous patches, updates, and fixes, there are also still parts of New Horizons that feel unchanged from the 2001 GameCube original. Since launch, Nintendo has released 11 feature updates and the Happy Home Paradise DLC for New Horizons, bringing back mechanics from New Leaf like diving and adding new ones like cooking. Most of them included new items or seasonal events, a strategy that reviewers, myself included, theorized would lead to different holiday events each year, but in the end didn't differ from previous approaches to celebrations for the series. Those 11 updates transformed Animal Crossing, turning it into a game that, while visually familiar, is vastly different than what it was at launch. It's fitting that I'm doing this re-review now, less than a year after the debut of the Switch 2. When New Horizons released, I was floored by just how great it looked on the then current-gen Nintendo Switch. And now, on the Switch 2, Animal Crossing runs in 4K in docked mode on Switch 2 and 1080p in handheld, but it appears to get there using upscaling, as the internal resolution in docked mode is 1080p with SMAA applied to keep the image sharp. Regardless of how the increase in visual fidelity is achieved, everything on my island looks much sharper. New Horizons looks great, whether you play it on Switch or Switch 2. But after playing the Switch 2 edition, it's difficult to imagine going back. I sometimes find myself wondering what a new Animal Crossing game could look like. I was satisfied with the original presentation and performance in 2020, and now on Switch 2, aside from increasing the frame rate to 60 FPS for future entries, I don't see anything else I'd want to upgrade. I also still love New Horizons' soundtrack. I know some view it as a weaker entry in the series musically, and maybe it's the fact that New Horizons has stayed with me longer than any other game in franchise history, but its music is my favorite. Though over the years, my tastes have shifted from the afternoon tracks to the evening and late night themes. 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 2 a.m. are among my favorite songs in Animal Crossing across all entries. When I first reviewed New Horizons, I said it was a game you could play as little or as much as you like. A few months after release, in the summer of 2020, my visits to my island slowed down. Just a month after launch, we got gardening and art added from returning characters Leaf and Red, respectively. Adding 2 big mechanics gave me hope for the future of the game and kept me going for a while longer. I planted flowers and bushes all over my island and began collecting paintings, but Red's inconsistent appearances led to me losing interest in collecting art. Nintendo kept the updates coming too. In the summer of 2020, Nintendo released the free summer update in 2 waves. Wave 1 added diving, allowing you to collect sea creatures, returning the mechanic from New Leaf and bringing back Pascal. Wave 2 added Dream Islands back. This was such a great feature at the time. Being able to freely explore other islands for inspiration, especially as the player base ballooned in size, was really cool. I toured so many islands that looked incredible in the summer of 2020. Dream Islands for me felt like Animal Crossing's version of Mario Maker. While I didn't contribute, in fact, I only uploaded my first Dream Island this year, I enjoyed viewing others' islands. In fact, even Joe Biden had a Dream Island, coincidentally, which is still accessible as of the making of this review. After Dream Islands, however, I found myself just visiting my island whenever something big dropped, or a seasonal event was going on. I'd come back to visit for Halloween, Toy Day, or even Festival, and I'd drop in for new items like the Super Mario Bros. 35th anniversary stuff, but by and large, I was playing other games after the summer of 2020. And as a result, I missed so many things, but some of my opinions did get proven correct. Returning to an abandoned island was made much easier. Cleaning up weeds and grass was nice because it was a path to getting some bells in my pocket. And I never felt like the idea of returning was insurmountable, even if I felt pangs of guilt when my villagers would mention how long I'd been away. And as it turned out, I had stayed away a long time, through the end of 2020 and much of 2021. Despite the occasional drop-in, I didn't start playing New Horizons properly again until November of 2021, when Nintendo dropped a massive update. Back in 2020, I refused to believe gyroids weren't in the game, but it turned out to be true. In the big November update though, they were finally added back, and I've been collecting them ever since. The November update also brought Brewster and Cap'n back and added ordinances as well, alongside a host of other small changes. This is where New Horizons finally started to feel as feature-packed as New Leaf, and to add to it, Nintendo also released the Happy Home Paradise DLC, which essentially mimicked Happy Home Designer from the 3DS. I said earlier that I'm not the most creative player, so the DLC didn't do much for me initially, but I was happy enough to have Brewster and Gyroids and Cap'n return to put another month into the game, but I made a huge mistake not playing more of Happy Home Paradise. Years later, I came back to play the DLC and was surprised by just how much it adds to the overall package. I initially wrote Happy Home Paradise off as a decoration sim, without realizing you could unlock new abilities that would be useful outside of its confines, like polishing furniture or even increasing room sizes in certain areas. Most importantly, I found that I really enjoyed designing rooms, earning Poké, and unlocking more facilities. If I had discovered my interest in this earlier, who knows how much longer I would have stayed in New Horizons world. However, the update at the time didn't keep me engaged for long, and as I dropped out of it, the Animal Crossing updates mostly stopped. Aside from bug fixes, updates were quiet for a few years until the debut of the Nintendo Switch 2, culminating in the release of the big 3.0 update and the Switch 2 Edition upgrade. The Switch 2 Edition has proven to be quite controversial, offering relatively few upgrades that received a mixed reception from the community. Aside from the resolution bump I mentioned earlier, Animal Crossing New Horizons adds mouse mode support for decorating your house, vacation homes, and hotel rooms, support for 12-player multiplayer sessions as long as everyone has a Switch 2, game chat integration in those multiplayer sessions, and a little megaphone that uses the Switch 2's built-in microphone to call out to your villagers. For me, mouse mode support for decorating was enough to pay the $5 upgrade charge on its own. It makes rearranging furniture and decor so much easier that I wish the Switch 1 version had this feature at launch. I found decorating previously to be a bit tedious, but mouse mode makes a huge improvement to the process, though I'd love to have more consistent use of the mouse. Opening home storage to then have to use traditional controls to navigate the menu feels like a missed opportunity to show just how convenient mouse mode can be, and a strange design decision, as mouse controls are far better suited to navigating a large menu full of individual items than traditional controller inputs. Outside of decorating, the rest of the features in the Switch 2 Edition feel like nice-to-haves that don't meaningfully change gameplay. The megaphone is somewhat useful, but it doesn't work if a villager is too far away or inside any of the houses or buildings on the island, meaning I still just sprint around looking for them. But it's impressive that it works at all in docked mode, even when your Switch 2 is pretty far away. The multiplayer updates, however, are what I'm most mixed on. 12-player multiplayer sounds like a great idea on paper, but in practice, it can be a headache. On both Switch 1 and Switch 2, Animal Crossing New Horizons is one of the longest loading games on the platform. Playing on Switch 2 dramatically reduces load times, cutting them by more than half, but it's by no means quick. Starting the game from the home screen takes about 47 seconds on Switch 2, down from over 2 minutes on the original Nintendo Switch, but 47 seconds is still on the longer side. When you're inviting people to visit your island, that loading time is masked with that delightful flight tracking setup, and it's fun to see the first time or two. But 11 times back to back? Loading an island with a dozen people can take up to 15 minutes, which is exhausting. Even in sessions with just 3 or 4 people, fatigue can set in while you wait for them to join your island. I would have loved to see Nintendo add drop-in, drop-out multiplayer on the Switch 2 edition of New Horizons, rather than boosting the player count. There's also the inclusion of game chat camera feeds in multiplayer for Switch 2 owners, which is becoming something of a standard feature in first-party Switch 2 games, but I haven't met anybody that uses this. I would have loved this option in 2020 when we couldn't leave the house, but in 2026, the feature feels unnecessary. While I would have loved more Switch 2 specific quality of life updates, I didn't expect much from a $5 upgrade, and if you're anything like me, there may be a single feature worth dropping the money on, but you'll know instinctively if this is the right purchase for you. Nintendo saved the best features for the big free update instead, which was an objectively great move. The 3.0 update brought with it a hotel that is essentially a free-to-play version of the Happy Home Paradise DLC, allowing you to decorate rooms to match specified themes, replete with a recommended furniture tab to make things a bit easier for those of us who are aesthetically incapable, like me. 3.0 also added my personally most anticipated upgrade, retro console games, but it did so in a way that I didn't really love. You unlock retro games by upgrading the hotel, providing a solid incentive for creating DIY objects and decorating rooms, which, by the way, you can make bigger if you've gotten far enough in the Happy Home Paradise DLC. Once you get them, however, they're tied to your active NSO subscription, and each console can only play one game, meaning you'll need to have multiple consoles in your house to play games. For example, you'll need a Famicom, a disk system, and an American NES to get all of the 8-bit offerings. I would have loved to have just the Famicom to play all of the 8-bit games, but I more so would have appreciated getting to play these games without an active NSO subscription, as New Horizons is already a full-price game. But realistically, there are likely very few players who are playing Animal Crossing enough to get these items who also don't have an online subscription, and the requirement isn't going to change how much I play New Horizons. My favorite feature in 3.0, however, has to be the addition of Slumber Islands. Slumber Islands let you and your friends do all the things you can't do in the existing multiplayer modes. You can use Island Designer to add cliffs and waterways, plant, dig, and destroy to your heart's content. You can even spawn villagers to populate your Slumber Island, and you can finally place decorations in multiplayer. Slumber Islands aren't without their drawbacks, however. The act of getting to your Slumber Island is something that trips up new and veteran players alike. You have to get in your bed, then choose to slumber rather than to sleep. Sleeping will take you to a dream island, where slumber will take you to the newly added Slumber Islands. I don't know why Luna couldn't just ask you which type of island you wanted to visit after choosing to sleep in your bed, but every time I've visited my Slumber Island with my family, at least one of us has chosen the wrong option, had to back out, wake up, and get back into bed again. These minor annoyances can be frustrating, but once you get into your Slumber Island, the experience is much closer to my idealized version of Animal Crossing multiplayer. Every item in my catalog is at my disposal, and you can choose the island size and layout. You can choose the time of day and the weather as well, changing them dynamically. But what I'd really love to see is the ability to place houses and other buildings. This would be such a useful tool to collaboratively workshop changes to my island if I could recreate some of the basic things that are on there, like Tom Nook's shop or resident services. As it stands, Slumber Islands feel like a step between the multiplayer experience on offer since 2020 and what a potential sequel's multiplayer could look like. Slumber Islands are so close to being perfect that I'd love to see Nintendo refine them further. For the last few weeks, I've been dropping into my island daily, getting a feel for the complete package, which I can only assume is the final version of Animal Crossing New Horizons. Aside from the major things added in 3.0 like the hotel and marquee features of the paid Switch 2 edition like the megaphone and mouse mode support for decoration, Nintendo added a lot of quality of life features to the update, like allowing you to finally craft more than one item at a time, letting you use items stored in your home storage to craft, and this little L button move that lets you move along Animal Crossing's invisible grid lines to make building symmetrically much easier. And all of that is to say nothing of Mr. Rossetti making a proper return to help clean up islands that have long been neglected like mine was going into 2026. The first cleanup is free, though he'll charge after that, but if you wait a few weeks, you'll get another cleaning on the house, making returning to your island much friendlier than it was before. But there are also things that have been bugging me since 2020 that are still in New Horizons today. Try handing Blathers a bunch of fossils. If even one of those fossils is something you've already donated, he won't take any of them. meaning you need to offer only the fossils he doesn't already have. Similarly, the dialogue tree at Dodo Airlines is still painful to navigate, and it's clear some thought went into certain choices. For example, if you're in island designer mode, you'll be automatically removed from it before you travel. That's nice, and I'd love to see more of that, but there are still some frustratingly dated dialogue options in New Horizons 6 years on. But these are fleeting annoyances at most. When I'm playing, these issues don't actively hamper my enjoyment, but they are things I'd love to see changed in the next entry in the series. Over these last few weeks, I've noticed my Animal Crossing routine has shifted dramatically from what it was in 2020. My relationships with my neighbors have been well established for years now, so I'm not focusing on them the same way I used to. Instead, I'm partaking in all the activities my island now offers, and New Horizons feels like an entirely different game as a result. Rather than running around hitting rocks and foraging for fruits, I'm working at the hotel or designing vacation homes. I'm taking trips to Harv's Island to shop at the co-op to find those art pieces that frustrated me so much 6 years ago. And I'm endlessly changing the layout of my island, adding and removing decorations, moving houses, and bending the terrain to my mood. Mostly, however, these days, I'm playing Animal Crossing with the people closest to me. Whether it's my best friends or even my kids, Animal Crossing is a game where I can connect with the people I care most about. Multiplayer still has issues, and they're the same ones that have existed since launch. You can't let friends help you redecorate your island, and you can't allow them to help you in island designer mode, making the process of reshaping your haven as you see fit a much longer one than it would be otherwise. I'd love to be able to give my friends the ability to help me with these more mundane tasks. New Horizons is in no way mechanically perfect. Even the Switch 2 edition could use some updates like mouse mode for island designer to name one, but in the face of what it offers, frankly, I find it difficult to be bothered. The best part of New Horizons, hands down, is the memories I've made here. I have an attachment to most games that mean something to me, but that seldom extends beyond the feelings I experience with the game on the shelf. With New Horizons, I have memories I've built within the game world itself. Memories that mean a lot to me, and I can't think of another game that has made me feel that way. Everywhere I go on my island, I can think of an encounter I had with a friend or loved one that I can tie back to that place. And years later, I look back on those places with a sense of nostalgia unlike anything I've felt in a game. Those feelings are akin to those I feel visiting places in the real world that carry significant meaning to me. In 2020, the best way I could describe Animal Crossing New Horizons was as a game that makes you smile. But I can do better than that now. Animal Crossing New Horizons is a game where you can catch a fish with a friend when you can't leave the house. It's a game where your 6-year-old can write you a letter that you'll cherish forever. It's a game where your mom will finally play with you after decades of asking. It's a game where you can share a moment with someone you love who's impossibly far away. Animal Crossing New Horizons is a game you can make memories with. For me, there's nothing better than that. So many meaningful moments that will last me a lifetime have happened on my island. Video games, at their purest, are meant to bring players joy, and no game does that better than this. I've been playing New Horizons off and on for the last 6 years, and while there are plenty of things I'd love to see change, like restrictive multiplayer, confusing dialogue trees, and reduced load times, there's much more that I love. Animal Crossing New Horizons updates have evolved the game over time in much the same way as we all built our islands, starting with the basics and becoming something much bigger and more vibrant. Even with its flaws, this is the best Animal Crossing has ever been. Even though I've spent time away from and come back to my island countless times since I first started playing, I love it even more now than I did back then.